Yeah, totally.
You can take two.
You should take
You
it.
tell the story.
Hmm?
You tell the story.
I can't tell the story, you gotta tell the story.
No, I mean the story where we were yesterday.
Just behind here, there's an old house where they used to make Lebkuchen. And the guy still lives there. His father made Lebkuchen, his grandfather made Lebkuchen. I think it's 4 generations.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And the ovens are still there. And the oven heated the water for the house. So the bath is in the same room as the oven. And that's where he remembers being bathed. And he's got a little tiny museum in there. It's really cool, really cool.
Okay.
1 minute until the next session.
Accessibility or search?
I'm going to do both. Or neither. Like, I'm split.
What was the search session? What was
Searching across multiple servers. That
Yeah.
was suggested by one of the Sebastians.
I think it was, but David Kane's not being about that or any other search-related stuff.
So if you're hosting your site, and I'm hosting my site, and Jeremy's hosting his site, how do I go and then look for content between these websites without having to Google?
Or DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, use DuckDuckGo.
No, but if you don't want to rely on that one central service to index everyone, how can you do search? I think that was the idea.
Yes, that was what I understood. That, or you accidentally managed to have your data saved across 16 different servers, and how can you find the thing that you're looking for again? Which the answer is consolidate it onto one server and try again. All right, I'm coming closer. Because these cables have been annoying me.
You're doing accessibility.
I'm doing accessibility. It's important, and at the very least, if I learn this, then I can go back to my boss on Monday and say, hey, I learned something this week. Well, because...
Maybe then you're very especially interested in business case for accessibility, because that sells very well for businesses.
Well, no, my boss is already aware that stuff needs to be accessible. He's colorblind, so he's very aware of what works for him and what doesn't work.
Very interesting thing that many people forget about on the web.
Yeah. Well,
I did pictures of the IndieWeb color scheme through different color blindness filters, and put those online in the chat as well to see, like, okay, you may have looked at some of the contrast, but did you look at the contrast for someone who's colorblind?
Yeah.
What's most interesting, or what I always do when I created a design, like the designer passes me on his creation, and I code it up in HTML, CSS, and then
well, you're in the right place, and I'm sitting here.
I open up Inspector
Just sit there.
and select the body element, and put in the CSS filter,
I'm here for the power
colon filter,
there's one more.
grayscale 100%, which sets all colors off, just gray, and so then you see, will it work in any kind of environment? Like, is it color independent?
Yes, so that makes it color independent, that's true, but sometimes if you apply the different color blindness filters, you'll see that certain colors are just too close to and because they're different, they get too close on the spectrum. And it's like, oh, you're using these two colors for, I don't know, warnings and real errors.
Does it work?
Well, it works for me.
Mine is charging.
Okay.
Mine too.
But then it's often like if you're using two different colors for warnings and real errors, but with a color blindness filter, they're almost the same color, you're using the wrong colors. You're going to have to use more wording, different, what I often do, because I study statistics, and it's make the graphs, and it's like, okay, you want to have one dotted line, one filled line, one, because there has to be another difference than just color.
One of my friends, he has a red-green disability, so he doesn't see the difference between green and red. And he works as a project manager for banks in IT department.
I don't have any.
And then one of his bosses came to a meeting and opened up his PowerPoint presentation, drew it on the wall and said, "Yeah, look, this is our new graph about income and what we sell, blah." And he sat there smiling, and he was, "Hey, what are you smiling at?" And he's like, "I can't tell the difference between the two graphs." Why is that? Yeah, well, I guess one is green and the other one is red. Yes, of course. Yeah, well, I only see gray. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky that my boss is colorblind because it's a built-in test for stuff. Because he's like, "No, need an icon on this." It's like, "Oh yeah, that's a good point." I have functions in my code which generate form fields, buttons, and things like that. And if I say I'm generating like a warning thing, then it adds like the icon and the word warning at the top, and then I just type in the message just to make it a little bit easier for myself. And then if I need to change it, like add a different ARIA tag or something later, or modify my use of ARIA tags, it's really simple to do. And that, I have to say, is one of the best ideas I had when starting to write this program, because it's massive now. And going back and fixing all of that manually later would be a pain.
Yes.
But modifying one function to add an ARIA tag is super easy.
Yeah, a common saying is that accessibility is nothing you can bolt on later.
Yeah.
It's something you need to
You
plan
have to
for
plan.
in advance.
Yeah, that's the thing that we have at work right at the moment. We're designing a new website. It's a typo-3 website. And unfortunately, the people that won the contract did not realize that a university needs to be accessible. Let's just say that cost them a couple of zeros.
All right. As I wrote on my card, it's like basic accessibility. I can't cover all the things because there's too much, and as soon as you go deeper, it gets harder and harder. Accessibility is not easy. It's not something you just learn. It took me a few years, and I'm still making so many mistakes. So there's that. What I can do is like talking about those things that are not too hard to implement when you have control over your markup. Like I'm going to talk about HTML mainly. So first things first, I mean there's this quote by Tim Berners-Lee that he said, "The power of the web is in its universality. Access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential aspect." So we as web developers need to make sure that people can do what they came for on our websites, whether it is to see an image gallery or to read texts or to post stuff or whatever. And I embrace that. I love that fact that we can provide people content on the web and make it accessible. As I started my journey through accessibility, I started to write down stuff, and this is the index, like topics I wrote about and gathered, and it's quite a lot already, and it's not even done yet. So I start with the general rule, which is mostly copy-pasted from the guidelines on web accessibility. Like text is the most accessible format of information on the web. So if you can put it in text, it's best for everyone. Screen reader software, other assistive technology like braille displays, they will always be able to parse text. If you have an image, provide alternate text like with the alt attribute. The only exception from that rule is if something is just mere decoration. If it's just a wave you put on the website and you can't put it in a background image, you want to put it as an image tag on the website, then leave the alt text empty. Don't omit it. Like, don't just put an image there with the source and without the alt attribute, because then some screen readers will go and read out the source. Like, then the user will be told image dash src dash like the whole path and the file name and the suffix, whole thing. It's very redundant, very verbose.
Which is also why you don't just use the file name as the alt text.
Exactly.
Which is an interesting test you get when you use microformats here in the IndieWeb, because a lot of microformats parsers will actually replace images with their SRC, with their source, if there's no alt on them. So you instantly see, oh, this post looks really weird because there are huge URLs in them. maybe you should, if you didn't want anything to show up, maybe put a empty alt on there, or otherwise there's your
And it
URL.
will be skipped, it will not be in the
Yeah.
accessibility tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing which I think is pretty, I don't want to say easy, but you can always add a lang attribute on your HTML element, like I'm showing here on the example code, which always helps the software to parse the text in the right language. So when you write a German blog post, please add a lang equals quote DE to it. When there are parts in your web page where you change the language, always add that to your markup as well. Like here, this is taken from the Wikipedia, where there's always a language navigation, where you can switch to other translations of an article. And they always have this lang attribute added to each of their links. Like this link is in German, this link is in French, this link is in Italian, this link is in Dutch language. Or a different example would be, I have a section heading, this text is in English. So I add on the section, on the wrapper, lang en. Here's the same thing in German, and the same in French, and so on and so on. So it's basically, it's not that hard to add a lang attribute, I guess, so it's something we can do to help users digest the contents of our websites. Something I added for our developers in the company is don't mistake href lang, which also exists, with the lang attribute. The href lang is just for search engines, crawlers, to know the language. It also provides helpful information, but not for the user. And now we're getting to something I embraced when it came. Like HTML5 introduced a ton of new elements, like nav, header, footer, aside, and those are landmarks. Landmarks provide users with screen reader software to jump through your website, through your web page. Like when you're able to see and you go to a web page, you just scroll down and scan the whole content. Like, where's the part that's interesting for me? You scroll down, you look at headlines, you hardly go on a web page and read it from top to bottom. And as returning users like you, your experience, you already have been to that web page application several times, the more advanced you get, the less you will just go from top to bottom and read it all. The more you are about to scan for where's the interesting part. These landmarks help blind people to do just that. It enables them to jump to a header, jump to the footer, jump to navigation. Like, there is always a way to work around if you don't have HTML5 elements, you're just using divs, which we shouldn't, right? But if you have a nav element, this role navigation thing, which comes from ARIA, which comes from the guidelines on accessibility, it is already on this. Like, you don't need to add it on top. One thing to add when it comes to navigations is, if you have more than one nav element on the page, they will all be announced as navigation. To provide your users with some extra information on what kind of navigation they're dealing with, whether it's the main site navigation or breadcrumb navigation, or it's like in your footer you have some information on your company and disclaimer and presum, data privacy, stuff like that. You can add this ARIA attribute, ARIA labeled by, on the nav element, give it an ID or like a value, and repeat that value on the first element inside and give that a textual label. Then in the screen reader software, when someone jumps to that navigation, the user will be told navigation, main navigation. And then jumping to the breadcrumb, it will be nav, navigation, breadcrumb, and so on. If you have just one navigation, there's no need to label it because, yeah, that's your navigation. a less verbose way to do that as well is using aria label and just instead of aria label by. The good thing is you have less code to write, it's less to think about. Where it can bite you is when you have translation software like Google Translate running, it will ignore the aria label, but Google Translate can translate this, its text, in the element.
So Google Translate will only translate then the text that would be visible to a
Yes,
sighted user?
Yes, and also if you're working with a CMS, the content management system, and you have translation labels instead of actual text, you can also provide textual labels in your CMS, like define what will be displayed to English users, what will be displayed to German users, and so on. Makes it a bit easier. And also because it is visible. If you want, something I might want to add. Here I used headings, because headings on top of landmarks are also navigable by screen reader users. They don't rely solely on landmarks, they can also use heading levels. So it's good to use headings inside these landmarks instead of just a span, and yeah, that's there. Another thing, we don't always want a headline visible in our navigation. I think a lot of designers would have problems with that. So there are ways to visibly hide text, but make it available to screen readers and other assistive tech. Something I want to show you, hiding content accessibly. So what I'm doing is I have my little helper class called Hidden Visually, where I remove the text visibly and then keep it in the HTML. So it's in the DOM, it's in the accessibility tree, but it's not visible. It won't disturb the visual design of it.
Is this available on like GitHub or something somewhere?
I created a code pen for myself, so I could share that, and then
I just think it would be useful in the document, because at the moment I'm rapidly Googling for examples of typing about that.
Yeah, of course. I read a ton of blog posts about certain ways of hiding content, or how to do this, how to do that, and also reading spec and reading, basically reading everywhere.
Yeah. So you've done what looks like a great job of summarizing it.
It was part of my job. Like, I wanted to do it, so I told my boss, hey, I want to create accessibility guidelines for our company, for our developers. Can I do that? And she was like, yeah, of course, why not? Of course, I made the business case for it, so she was, of course, why not? Yeah, more users. Something you should also know, if an element is hidden with display none in CSS, or with visibility hidden, it's gone. It's not on the accessibility tree. So for example, if you have something you want to hide from everyone, use display none or visibility hidden, because then it won't be seen for people who can see, who are not relying on specific software. And it will also be gone from the accessibility tree. If you only want to hide stuff from screen readers but keep it visible, then you can use aria hidden true. Sorry. Which keeps it visible but removes it from the accessibility tree. That's aria hidden.
So if you have an image, going back to your first example, something that's just for display, you could set the alt text to nothing, but then also specify the aria hidden is true, so that the screen reader knows, like, this is really not something I'm supposed to look at.
Images are very special. Always. On the web, images are special. And if you just leave alt text empty, screen readers will skip it.
Okay.
So there's no need to add area hidden on top.
But it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing to do. If
No,
you
not at
explicitly want to
Yeah.
make sure that it's hidden, so if in the future somebody
Mhm.
helpfully comes along and decides, yeah, let's add an alt text to this really beautiful image.
It's in so far it's annoying because in the future they want area to be gone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if there's not a use case for adding an area property, the area folks themselves are kind of like, don't add them.
Okay,
Uh,
that makes sense.
The first
yeah,
rule,
exactly.
the first rule in the WAI ARIA guidelines is if you can use a native HTML element or attribute with the semantics and behavior, then don't use ARIA.
Yeah.
Use the element.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
I wouldn't add areas to stuff that
Doesn't-
really already
Yeah,
works.
okay.
Yeah, a bit shorter is this sentence. Try to keep your HTML accessible and you won't need to write any ARIA attributes or roles.
Sounds good.
Ideally, in an ideal world. course.
If only the world were open.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Another landmark which is quite important is the main element, which should wrap all your content on your website. Like basic HTML page comes with a header where you have your logo, a claim, a navigation, maybe inside the header, maybe below it, maybe on top, that's depending on design. And then you have a whole lot of content.
Mhm.
And your content should always be wrapped with the main element. And of course, there comes Internet Explorer and says, oh, I don't know what main is. And therefore, there's one thing where you need to add the role to it, like role main, because Internet Explorer will never get a fix for that.
It's not
They-
supported by Microsoft anymore, is it?
Yeah, so that's the point. Like, it won't get any updates apart from security updates.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure role main is on the main element. That's one thing. So, next element. Once I was asked, is section just a beautiful name for div? And in part, that's a good question because, yeah, you're right. We can throw around sections like nothing, and we can throw around divs. It doesn't make a difference. It's both are block level elements and don't have any semantic meaning. But with a section, we can add some semantic meaning to it if we label it. Just like with the navigation, we add area label by, give it a value, repeat that value, for example, in the section heading, and therefore create a landmark. Again, also, just like with the navigation, we can add area label, but yeah, same advantages, same problems.
Actually, there is a big difference between divs and sections. Sections belong to the family of sectioning elements. And if you look to the spec, then it's written that every sectioning element, and for example, main and aside, and that I think as well, they are implied to always have at least one heading. And if it's not explicitly written out, then it's expected to be an empty heading. So there is a big difference. A section is always a landmark. You don't need to add a region for it.
Yeah. Thanks. No, he's perfectly right.
It's just a bit redundant here. Don't do it, but actually it's not necessary to add them.
Okay. Thanks.
Don't we?
Yeah. What I added to the landmark section is skip links, because there are also sighted users who don't rely on Street View software or other assistive tech, and they use the keyboard to navigate web pages. So,
I do that. I think I've also pointed some stuff out to Yoshi before on the Torwag website where I was just, I have to tap 5 times to get anywhere.
No, that's a pain point, and remind me again, because like the website, next year it's going to have its 10th anniversary and we didn't change anything about it, so it's you know, it's a pain point. Remind me of that.
yeah, and at our company we built we started building a software like 1.5 years ago, and when we tested it, we found out that the longer people use the software, the more they relied on the keyboard alone. And and they weren't able to skip the whole navigation, which had like 20 points and sub-navigation points, and then they always had to jump over that, and then there was a tab navigation on top, and they had to traverse that, and it was so much pain that I started, yeah, why don't we include skip links? Like, it's just a web software, it's still a website. It's just can do fancy things. So, the way you add them is you add them as the first children of your body, just above the header element, like here, and it's just there I am. It's a jump link, like very basic HTML, where you add an ID to an element. For example, here I have hash main content. Here's my main element, and it has the ID main content and eRoll main. So by clicking the link skip to the content, main will receive the target, and screen readers and also people using the keyboard will be able to go from there. First time they visit your website, they might skip your skip links, but it's only 2 skip links or maybe 3. Like you can point to the content, to the search, and to the navigation, for example. A little demonstration of this on this very site. When I hit tab, I get the link skip to the main navigation. I tap again, skip to the main content. They are invisible first, and when they receive focus, I make them visible again. And when I hit enter, I jump to the navigation. Yeah, hiding content access. And we had the images. Yeah, like I said, always provide a descriptive alt text on the image tag. You may leave it empty when you're having a caption close to the image. That's another thing to take care of. Like you have a fig caption, like you have the figure element. I should stop smoking.
It's probably good for your health.
With the figure element, we get the possibility to add graph data or SVG data or even images, and add a fig caption explaining what the graph is showing or what the SVG is showing or what the image is showing. And there we can also omit the alt text if the description of the image is in the caption. Mostly, well, with our clients, it's like, yeah, can we add the copyright somewhere? Yeah, okay, there's the caption for it. They love to have their description of the image or the alt text, so that's okay. Something to note is that you can add other block level elements in your fig caption. So there's that. That's fine to do. And something I wrote down, and I read that somewhere, is that it's advised to put the fig caption first, but visibly, for people who can see, it's better to have the image on top and the text below. So I went to use Flexbox and then reverse the order visibly. So the fig caption comes first in the DOM, but visibly will be below.
There have been a lot of hacks to do that throughout the years, also before Flexbox.
Yeah.
So if you have fig caption first in your DOM and then the image tag, if you make the figure element a table and your image tag a table caption, it will automatically jump to the top. Yeah.
Okay, inline. I don't want to touch inline SVG. That's a lot. I wrote a whole article on the subject, which also has around 5,000 words. So
We have homework.
yeah. What else? Yeah. Maybe buttons is. Yeah. Okay. Buttons. There are different buttons on web pages. Like, there's always the famous submit button, and you don't need to do much to make it accessible. For a contact form or whatever, that's pretty straightforward. You have a button there, and you write text like submit, or you have an input type button with a value of submit, and that's accessible from in and of itself. You don't need to do anything for that. if you have button in your content which triggers an action like toggling content, toggling a modal, or your main navigation on mobile, it's mostly hidden behind the hamburger icon, right? They need to do a bit more, and that's where ARIA comes in and is really, really helpful. Because first of all, we can tell a button in which state it is. Like, is it pressed? Like a light switch, is it on or off? And with JavaScript, we can then alter the value inside the attribute. So here's one point where I say, which I rarely do, that you need JavaScript to improve the accessibility of the web page. Mostly it's the other way around. But yeah, that's just me. What we don't want to do, really, really, really don't, is use a div or a span or anything else in HTML that's not a button is not a button. Because to trigger a button, you can hit space, you can hit enter, you can click it. And you would need to listen with JavaScript on all these three events in order to make anything else a button. On top, if it's a div, it needs to be focusable, you need to read tab index 0, you need to add the role attribute, so it's getting so complicated, so much more you need to do just to make it do what a basic button can do. And from a visual standpoint, a div, when there's no style sheet, doesn't have any visual clues that it's a button. If the button still, from any browser, has some styling added to it from the get-go, it will always look like a button. So, with ARIA pressed, we can use the same attribute in our CSS to style it. So there's no need to add extra class. With a class, it's just the same. And when we have ARIA pressed true, we change the value from false to true with JavaScript. We can use the same attribute selector and change the color of the button. Like in this case, I made it as easy as possible, so it's just the switch of the colors here. With classes, you would have to switch with class list or any other function. You would have to change the class name, and the result is the same. But with ARIA pressed, we have the button also accessible. And here's a little script which says, here we have a const called toggle. It looks for the attribute ARIA pressed, and we have an event listener that on click, let pressed, get attribute target true, set attribute string pressed, and with class list, it does the same thing, just with CSS, with classes on the element. It's not that, it's like a little bit more code, but not so much that it would verify that we use class list for this. As I stated below, from the amount of code written point of view, both solutions are equally good or bad, but with ARIA pressed, we can do the same thing as with classes, and it is accessible on top. Yeah, here we are, form buttons, button type submit or input type submit. It just works. Don't need to do anything. Just don't use images or something, use text. That would be that. Yeah, action buttons, that's yeah. Here I go on about what's not a button. Explaining my fellow developers that, yeah, what I just said, don't use a div, don't use a span, don't use a H. I've seen things in the wild like an H1 with a roll button. I don't know why.
Somebody was having a bad day at work.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, he had after I seen it. I was like, what's that? Yeah, make tables accessible.
Don't screen readers tend to read tables in columns, if I'm remembering correctly? They go from top to bottom, I know that much.
It depends on your structure.
Okay.
In this case, yes. We have the caption explaining in short what the table is going to be about. It needs to be on top, like just like the fig caption.
Right.
It's basically the same concept. It explains in very few words what data can I expect from this table. Then we have our table head, there's THs with what we're going to talk about in this table. We have our columns and our footer. In the T-foot we can put out what's going on. Yeah. So tables are pretty straightforward when it comes to accessibility. There's not much you should do. Ah, yeah. Sliders, swipers, carousels. I don't know what the appeal is that people always add them to their web pages or request that they need a slider. Just no. The user experience is so bad that no, you shouldn't. Why not? So it gets hardly used by users. Then how much text can I put in an auto-scrolling? Have you been able to read what's been displayed? Oh, no, I haven't. And wait, oh, please, now I need to get back. And then I start it over. And again, I will lose context. And it's just, for image galleries, that might be a use case. But even then, it's very, very hard to make it accessible because you need to take care of the buttons, which will switch to next and previous. Then you have those pips, dots, whatever they are, and you need to be able to make them focusable and clickable, and it's just painful. I hate that.
But they look so pretty.
Yeah, and we can't tell our journalists that they are not equally important, because that makes them equally important, right? We show them on the same pane. We can put them horizontal because that one on top would be so much more important than the ones below. Maybe not, but yeah. I also made a case why they are bad and explained this whole the issue behind it. I linked to researches and usability tests. So yeah, most viewers never progress past the first image. 84% never make it past the first image of the scrolling swiper, slider thing. Yeah, keep it simple. Yeah, something I explained with the action button, like a collapsible content section. We always have that. I also don't know why, because if you have content on your web page, why wouldn't you want to show it? The one case where I am pro collapsible content sections is to gradually reveal content. Like when you're user onboarding, when you're doing this, you can show things one after the other and not all at once. Like something we see a lot is in FAQ sections where you can toggle the contents below the headlines. There are two techniques to do this. One is with CSS and HTML alone, which I'm showing here. It's basically the same with the skip link. You have a target, the toggle area. Here's our section with the toggle area ID. And when this receives target, we can use that in our CSS to display it. Toggle area, display none. Toggle area has target, display blah. What recently hit the streets is the details and summary elements in HTML, and it works pretty fine for doing just that. It's just that some browsers, I don't want to say which, like Internet Explorer, don't support it yet, and will never do so. So one way to do this is here. The issue with this, you're always writing to the history. Like whenever this button is clicked, you're writing to the history of the browser. You always add this little hash toggle area. And you need to be able to close the same element. So you have another thing which you are writing to the history of the browser. So it makes the back button, the browser back button, completely irrelevant. It won't work the way users expected. Along comes JavaScript. We are listening on, is JavaScript there? With a little inline script. This is basically this is this. It's just that. You have class list, remove Node.js and add JS. We have JS class. Hey, we have JavaScript. And now we're using JS toggle link display none. Our links to toggle this they are gone. Users won't be able to use those links to write to the history and toggle the area. but instead we are showing our little button with ARIA pressed on it. And this button, sitting next to the section, basically does the same thing. When clicking, this is being revealed. And, yeah, okay, this would be the whole thing, like you have this link, then you have the button. Either is hidden whether JavaScript is there or not. And here's our section with the content and the hide link, which will also be hidden when JavaScript is there. And basically, Node.js section target, display block, ARIA expanded true, ARIA pressed true, plus section, display block. So whenever my script, listening for the click on the button, sets ARIA pressed to true, our toggle area will be expanded. Yeah, you already see this is, it's a lot. It's always not that much, but if you didn't know, you would never do that. I didn't. Yeah, same goes with tooltips, which is just a collapsible content section, if you want to think of it that way. The issue I have with tooltips is that our designers and our clients always expect them to be visible on hover. But what happens when someone isn't able to hover? Like on mobile device, or someone using the keyboard. And therefore, I would always recommend using a button element for your question mark, icon thingy, whatever it is that triggers the tooltip on hover. But then you can also be able to click it or tap it or use your keyboard to show the tooltip. And apart from that, it's the same concept as above.
I think there are so few cases where tooltips should be used.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, whenever someone just, the form is unclear, so add a tooltip after the input element.
No,
that just means your form is unclear.
Yeah, you need to
Like,
either add description to your form
there's
or
a different accessibility issue, just a usability issue as well going on there. And if it's like, yeah, but I understand it because this is my field, but someone using the form, well, if someone using the form is not going to be in your field, then your form has to have that as a baseline and not just add it in tooltips.
Yeah. Now, what I added as well, because we are using a lot of navigation patterns, that would be also out of scope now, because there are so many different. What I can show you is breadcrumb, because that's fairly easy compared to the rest. As I said earlier, you have your nav with ARIA labeled by, then you have your label for the nav element, breadcrumb navigation. You can hide it if you want to. And then we have our list of links, home, second level, third level, and then we have our current page, where the user is now. Okay, there I should change the wording here because home is already here, but blog post, for example. So adding ARIA current to this last element tells screen readers and assistive tag and browser displays and whatever it is that, yeah, it does what it says, right? Our current page is our blog post. And on focusing the list, it will say list element with 1, 2, 3, 4 list elements. Then you tap into the first link, home, then you tap second level, third level, say current page, blog post, or whatever it is.
Huge misconception.
Yeah.
Because the ARIA current attribute only makes sense on links. Because it's marking the current URL. And that's a problem with breadcrumb navigations, because with breadcrumb navigations, actually the current page must not be a link.
You can use the A element without the href, which is a placeholder for a link without an href.
Which is probably the best solution.
Yes.
Yes.
I only used strong here because of,
So that's why.
didn't know.
That explains when I was messing around with the breadcrumbs in my template. I was there trying to figure out why, because they were just making every single element of the breadcrumb a link, including to the current page. So you would click on it and you go back to the current page, which was driving me crazy. Yeah. So I just need to figure out if it's the last one and remove the href. That was just
exactly.
easy to do because then it's still accessible.
Yeah.
And if it's the last one, then instead of href, I can just add the area of current.
Mm-hmm.
We go. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we don't want to get into tablet navigation. You can already see that here we have a row, we have area select, we have area controls, we have row tab list.
And then of course the official recommendation that switching between tabs should be done with arrow keys. Therefore you must use JavaScript to make this supported.
Honestly, I think if something on the web is so complicated, marking it up that way to make it accessible, maybe you should use something else.
Yes.
But that's me.
But sometimes there's a designer that thinks differently about that.
Accessible color is also very complicated. I mean, basically there are rules, there are guidelines, and luckily for us there's tools, and I think tools are also very helpful. I'm using a ton of them all the time. Bookmarklets, they let you add the JavaScript to your site. For example, I found this one pretty interesting. Not that I didn't. You can learn something using it. Like when you have text, like here, yeah. This is a blog post I made on my Tumblr, and when I hit the dyslexia thing, it shows me what this might look like for someone who has a dyslexic disability. It just makes you, it made me aware that, oh my gosh, okay, depending on my choice of web font and on the way I'm writing, this can get pretty nasty. A good friend of mine, he is dyslexic and he has a hard time reading and writing. And he says, the more words there are and the more complicated it gets, the less I'm about to read anything at all. Now I don't know. I mean, I would have to talk to my employer if I can share these guidelines and tools with you. If that's good, I could make a zip out of it. It's just HTML, CSS on a local, on my computer, like nothing fancy.
Still, it would be nice to have a copy of if that's okay with your employer.
Yeah, for command line NPM modules, like you can add accessibility tools, test tools to your Gulp, Grunt, whatever, workflows, Webpack, what you name it. It's always possible to do that. Just don't rely on it completely because no tool is perfect. You will always have to at least make a short look whether there is anything wrong, which doesn't work, or
I don't remember the exact figures, but we had Carl Groves here last Monday, and he had prepared a new talk, and he was giving us stats about like what they experienced with Canon, and the percentages of accessibility problems they can test with a tool, completely automated. They can test with a tool and need manual review, and the accessibility issues that can only be tested manually. And
exactly.
Like the manual thing was like 50–60% or something. So
the main problem you get with automated testing tools is you get a lot of false negatives and false positives. Like one tool will say, oh my god, there you done fucked up, you made something wrong, and you test it with a different tool which doesn't have the setting at all, and it will tell you, it won't tell you there's an error because it doesn't know. It depends very, very much on the implementation. And Tenon.io, Yoshi just mentioned, it's a web service. Everyone can use it. You can just go
Except
there.
I, because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you put my domain there, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So it is, but what it does, it just gives you hints on what could be wrong. So it's not bad to do it, but it won't show you all the issues.
there will be a new version launching end of this year, beginning of next year.
It's because Sven talked about this was being demoed here,
Yeah.
and we entered my URL, and it just doesn't work. It just sits.
Something I passed on to our designers is this tool by Leah Baru. It's called contrast ratio, where you can put in one color, like cornflower blue, and then add another one, black. Okay, and it will show you here in the middle, passes AAA level for any size of text. And if I go and use this, oh, fails completely. Okay, maybe I go with this, only for large text, okay, getting there. So it helps our designers to choose the right shades of gray out of the 50 available we know.
If I can recommend a tool, especially since there's so many MacBooks here, Sim Daltonism.
I don't know about that.
No, so just Google it. It's a free app.
Sim?
S-I-M,
Yeah.
space Dalton.
Dalton?
Daltonism. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
And what this will let you do is open up what looks like a transparent screen on top of your screen. And you can tell it to, within this screen, simulate specific color blindness.
Cool.
And it's just a free thing, you can click, it's open source, and you can just move it about your screen wherever you want to have it, so you can focus it on certain parts of a website. You can then pick your color blindness and run with it.
Sweet.
Can I go to
I'm sure the people who are colorblind wish that they could pick their color blindness.
So if I go to if I go to Yoshi's website.
No.
No.
But you have a big photo. I need one with a photo, basically.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I don't love.
I mean, there's a
photos.
massive picture at the top of my website.
So here you can see Joshi's head through one of the filters. So you see that the color is slightly mixed up. You can probably see that. No, your link color is the same with this particular thing. I can go here and I can pick. Now we're on Tritanopia.
Yeah, basically,
Tritanopia.
you know that the reason for the default colors for links to be blue,
Blue is for this, yeah.
Yeah.
And this, so here you can pick different types of color blindness and just see immediately an approximation of what those people would see. That's a tool I would recommend.
Time is over.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. It was a good overview.
Very useful.
Yeah, like if I'm able to, I will
Yeah.
definitely share the zip one with like.
Great.
Let's
Thank
do
you.
it.
Okay, Spencer, way back there. I'm reserving this spot, but I finally did the diagram for the